So Honest 2 was the first song that we wrote together as a band, essentially, and it was like the first thing that kind of really brought us together. And I remember like within the first few days and like week or so of all three of us being here together, we were talking about just kind of themes and concepts that we wanted to write about, and really portray in the message of the music that we wanted to be sharing with people. And a huge theme for us was like writing music to like younger us, like 15, 16-year-old us, like what they needed to hear. We wanted to be a voice that spoke to that. And so a major theme that we really felt highlighted was talking about, I guess, the whole concept of like you become who you're surrounded with, or like who raised you and who brought you up, which in a sense is very true. Like you do become the people that you surround yourself with, but there's also a piece of it where the Lord creates you with like such a specific and a unique identity that the world and your family even really can't take away from you. So that was like a really major thing that we felt highlighted to go after. On the day that we wrote it in this room. I came in with a progression and then we just kind of sat on it.
I think things just started coming really easily. I think that was the beauty of this song, is that ideas were just like flying out and things just started like making so much sense. Just something felt really special. We felt a lot of heat on it, which I think was just a really cool feeling of being like, whoa, like this makes a lot of sense. But even caused us to take time to reflect on our own personal lives too. Like as we were saying, like we want to write to our 16-year-old selves, but there's also a heart process in that of, do I believe that I am the sum of another person's brokenness, or like what are things in my life that I'm holding on to that were projected onto me even, and how to release that, and even just feeling that burden for other people.
Yeah, and it's crazy because Honest Part 2 came very first, and Honest Part 1 was the very last song that we wrote in the entire EP. And so then when we got to the end of it, seeing how one was this heart cry of a person and someone that was going through a lot of pain and questions and doubt and confusion, and then seeing Honest Part 2, how it really was the Lord's response to that person, even though they were written on two other sides of the 3 months, like opposite. It was just really cool to see how the Lord did that and gave us a answer in a sense. And it doesn't answer all the questions, but just seeing the Lord's perspective and how he really places identity over us and says what he sees. And Honest 1 just being like, this is what I feel, this is what I see in myself, this is what I'm experiencing. And then Honest Part 2 being like, from the Lord, this is what I see, this is what identity I've put over you, and giving him, like we said, like enough time to respond to that. And then tying into what they said of talking to our younger selves. When I graduated high school, I felt kind of a lot of guilt to leave a lot of the younger girls that were there, because I just know how hard high school was for me, and I was walking with a lot of them. And I think I had a big heart for just sharing my experiences with them. And when we were writing this song and talking about writing to our younger selves, I had them in mind. It's just really sweet to be in a position to create a message that I could have used when I was younger.
What's your favorite section of the song, or like what was your favorite part of writing this song?
Easily my favorite part is the anger of your father is bottled in your fist. And I remember writing that, and I remember I was standing up over there and you guys were sitting, and we had this idea of holding someone's pain in our fists and walking around with that. And I just remember forming it. It was really fun, and we bounced off of each other. I don't know how exactly it happened, but one of us had a thought, and then we created on top of each other until we got that phrase, and then added the distance of your mother and all the things that you missed. I think we chose mother and father, but it was so much more than that. It was also friends and relationships pouring into us and shaping who we are. So to be able to put that into words of like somebody else's anger has transferred into you and into your hands, and now you're walking with that, but you're actually not the sum of that, and you don't actually have to do that if you choose not to. And so becoming aware of that. So those words just were really powerful. And it's really cool because we've had some people listen to it and have completely different interpretations of it. Like a friend who lost her mother and who was really angry at her father, and just different things. And for me, it's not like that. I have no association with my parents for it. It's more just other people in it. So it's my favorite part.
I love the last chorus about the line of the Lord restoring wonder through life and just through experiences and heartbreak and sorrow and grief and all of these things, kind of pointing back to the line of verse 2, which is talking about like, I watched as the tears stole the color from your eyes, and just like that hopelessness and that like wonder that's removed or sometimes even stripped away. Like the Lord so desperately wants to restore that childlikeness, and even where some of that was lost in your childhood, or even things were reflected in your parents or those who you were surrounded by, that can steal wonder of even life, or even closing off, like closing yourself off to wonder and to hope, because it's like, I can't have those things because this is my reality, or this is what I've seen reflected in other people. So even just that invitation to accept the wonder from the Lord and to let that part of you be restored. Yeah, and a good response to a heart that is asking questions, an honest one. That's my favorite.
My favorite part of the song, probably all of verse 2. I remember writing that part of it, and like constructing the melody for it was so fun. And then once we locked it in, I remember being so excited. Like that's one like vivid memory that I have of like that specific melody line of like the like that whole thing. Once we got that locked in with the lyrics and stuff, it was just so satisfying and just beautiful. And then I just love the imagery of verse 2. I think it's just really beautifully written, of just the lines of how the tears stole the color from your eyes, but then the Lord being like, but don't you know my thoughts for you outnumber the sand, and I'll spend your whole life singing over you until you understand. That's crazy. It's so good. And it's really cool that the Lord, the one who created us, is going to spend our entire existence on this earth singing and sharing his thoughts with us until we are able to receive them, and he's just waiting for us to receive them. It's such a beautiful picture, and I just love too that we were able to just pull direct scripture and put it straight into a verse on our song.
One of my favorite sections of this song, we took a sample of kids laughing in, is it the last chorus? Let me bring back your wonder, you can dream again. And after that, we have a sample of these kids laughing. At first, we were like, is this going to be cheesy? How is this going to sound? But every time I listen to it, it's one of my favorite parts. I just see a dream in a child's heart coming to life again as they're older, even if they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. And just the laughter and the innocence of kids laughing and being like, let the Lord redeem your dreams that you gave up on, or you let other people tear down.
It sounds like the feeling of like innocence being restored in like a moment.
And even in that, like, the Lord understands all of the things that he has planted in your heart, and like all these dreams that were specific and on purpose. And even if some of those things, like you were saying, are stripped away because of pain or even hopelessness of feeling like I can't do that because these things have happened in my life. Like the Lord does not forget, even though when we try to like push it off and forget, like the Lord's like, no, like please let me restore that, because there's something so beautiful there and it's worth it. Like there's value to it, there's weight to it.
Do you guys think are like our hopes for people as they're listening?
I think one of our hopes would be for the listener to recognize that the Lord is extending an invitation, because Honest One ends in this place of asking all these questions, am I okay to come as I am? And lingering long enough to hear the Lord's response, and not just sitting in that pity, but like recognizing and waiting for the Lord to be honest back to your place of honesty, where you're real with him. Everything's laid out before him, and you're like, this is who I am. This is maybe not necessarily who I am, but this is where I'm at. And is that okay? Am I okay to feel all these things, and to take enough time to listen to the Lord's response and invitation to bringing deeper healing to all these different areas of your life? Just the hope of people understanding the Father's heart, that it is not a Father that wants you to come to him perfectly cleaned up and with no problems at all, but him saying, no, actually, you don't have to explain anything to me. Like, do you know, like, what I see in you? Like, I see so much more than what you can physically see right now in your own process and where you're at. Not that he's disregarding your feelings or what you're processing, but he's like, that's not who you are. When we accept the Lord's invitation to see things the way that he sees them, there's actually so much more hope to be found, and so much more life to be found.
Yeah, I think my biggest hope for Honest Part 2 is just that people will see real identity over themselves. I also just hope that people can accept the simple gospel too, the simple truths of he sees us, he knows us, he loves us, he hears us. The bridge is very simple, straightforward, but it's the Lord's heart of I do see you, I do know you, I love you, and I hear you. But also more than that, of how much more do I know you than you know yourself. So I think, just identity. And I obviously want it to hit all generations, but also I have a soft spot for the younger generation, being able to hear this kind of song and be like, whoa, kids lose their identity by one word from another person. And so to be able to have a song full of truth and stability and the Lord's heart over them, to remind them, like, actually you have a full identity and it has nothing to do with any of that, is huge to me. So if one little girl in her room can hear this and be transformed, I'm like, the job for me is done. So
I would love for people to walk away knowing that the Lord desires to be deeply relational, and in constant conversation with them, so that he can share his thoughts that are just never ending. So
go listen to Honest Part 2. It's out.
Honest
now.
2.
If you want a
Honest
love
2.
letter from the Lord, I guess it's past Valentine's Day, but go listen to Honest 2. You got this, dog.
Yeah.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Good job, guys.